grew up on a dairy farm in western Michigan, a Holstein dairy farm. And I should start off by saying I love Holsteins. Don't get me wrong. They will always have a place in my heart. But as I was growing up, I always longed for a brown Swiss. I was told I could not have a brown Swiss, but I just always stared longingly at them and told myself someday I would own a brown Swiss. So when I was 16, I went to a heifer sale at a neighboring county, and I rebelled, and I brought a brown Swiss home. A few months later, when we were at the county fair with my animals, I just happened to be standing near them, and I overheard the conversation of a group of 10-year-old boys. One of them, when he walked by my animals, pointed to my brown Swiss and said, "Look, a brown cow. That's where we get chocolate milk." Now, that statement is not unique to my county. It's not unique to my state of Michigan. I'm sure everyone in the room has heard statements similar to that, worse than that. You've probably read them, seen photos about the dairy industry, less than positive things about the dairy industry. So that is why we need all of you in the room, all of you here at World Dairy Expo, and everyone across the nation who's involved in the dairy industry to embrace social media, to embrace our industry, and to promote it through social media. I once heard social media described to me as a megaphone. You can say one thing, and it goes to hundreds, thousands, and millions of people. That same positive message can reach so many people through one little click on your computer. So, nearly 6 in 10 Americans younger than 30 say that they get their news online. I know I fall into this category. I don't have a newspaper delivered to my house. I'm not always at my apartment to watch the nightly news. So I go online first thing in the morning, CNN.com, and this is where I get my information. So if nearly 60% of consumers are online, that's where we need to be. What a great way to reach this population and to reach this audience. I'm going to give you a minute to look at these words on the screen. We have inhumane, slaughter, cancer, melamine, mercury, devastating. If anti-agriculture groups had their way, these are the words that consumers would see and hear on a daily basis about the dairy industry. And they've already actually done a pretty good job getting their information and getting their stories out to consumers. But with everyone who's here today and here at Expo, if we embrace social media, if we use it to promote our industry, we can get words like vitamins, wholesome, quality, nutritious, pride, safety, families. We can make sure that consumers know that this is not only our job, it's our livelihood. I mean, we care for these animals and the environment 365 days a year. We need to share our positive stories. Here's a few social media numbers for you. First of all, let me take a little poll. How many of you in here have a blog? Great. What about a Facebook account? Great. What about Twitter? Perfect. As you can see, there are just so many people, millions of people using all social media applications. 133 million bloggers. And just as of last week, there's 300 million Facebook users. It's a lot of people using Facebook on a daily basis. There's 17 million Twitter users. And then the one that really gets me every time I see it, 20 hours of YouTube video are uploaded every minute of every day. That's a lot of positive and a lot of negative videos being uploaded. So social media is actually taking those of us who, in this room, who are on the left side of the screen. We're the ones who are caring for our animals. We're working with our nutritionists to make sure our cows have healthy, well-balanced diets. We're in the milking parlor. It's taking us from the left side of the screen and connecting us with those who are on the right side of the screen. The consumers who are in the city, those who are purchasing milk and dairy products at schools. And a great way to do it, as I've mentioned, is social media, using the Facebook, the Flickr, blogs, Twitter. We're going to get into the My Dairy program. Earlier this year, Dairy Management Incorporated launched a social media program that really helps to mobilize the dairy industry. Those of you here, and it helps to give you the tips, the techniques that you need to use Facebook, not only personally, but also to promote the dairy industry. Since the launch in February, we have nearly 600 My Dairy advocates signed up for the program, and again, that's all across the United States. And what we did is we hosted 2 webinars where we shared, pretty much the same information that I'm sharing with you today. We gave them tips on how to use these applications and the resources that they need. We also send out every couple weeks an e-blast with any information that they might need. You know, if there's a social media story that involves the dairy industry, or if there's a new social media application, we'll send out an e-blast just to keep people informed on what's being said and new ways to use social media to say it. So what's in it for dairy? Again, just making sure that consumers, you know, those people who purchase dairy products, who are maybe 2, 3 generations removed from the dairy farms, and they just don't know. And you know what? It's not their fault that they don't know. But it does give us the opportunity to step in and say, hey, you have questions? I live on a dairy farm. This is my livelihood. Let me tell you how I care for my animals, why I care for my animals, and here are some examples. The Matrix video. This slide is actually going to go through some anti-animal agriculture groups who have used social media successfully. The Matrix video was launched, I believe, in 2005, give or take. And it's a cartoon video that showed some horrible situations on how animals are treated. Again, they resorted to cartoons to share their stories. The PETA Blog, they are actually voted the #1 charity blog choice in 2008. Unfortunately, when I drove in the grounds this morning, there were 3 demonstrators from PETA sitting out front here at World Dairy Expo at those front gates. They have a right to be here. They, paid their dues. They filed the correct paperwork. But unfortunately, they're trying to tell our story to people, and they're trying to tell it the negative stories, the wrong information. And then Farm Forward. When we started this program in February, the owner of this Twitter handle, he had 75 followers. In just 6 months, he has over 3,000 followers. And then HSUS, as you can see from this screenshot of their Facebook page, they're using MySpace, they're using Facebook, they're using YouTube, Twitter, Flickr. They're using them all very successfully. So this is just a little glimpse into what they're doing and how they're using social media to share the wrong information about what we do. And let me tell you, the dairy industry, we have been using social media. After the Matrix video was launched, we launched dairyfarmingtoday.org. And what we did is we created a website that's geared towards consumers to educate them on modern dairy farming practices. As you can hopefully see from this screenshot, we have pictures of real producers. These are real producers. We go out to their farms, we take photos of them, we take videos of them and their families hard at work. Because we did some consumer research and actually found out that consumers don't want to hear this from a cartoon character. They want to hear it from you, the people in this room who are doing this work on a daily basis. They want real, authentic dairy farmers to tell them what they're doing and how they're doing it to care for their animals. Before we launched dairyfarmingtoday.org in 2005, if you Googled dairy farming, the first couple pages were milk stocks, PETA, HSUS. But now, since this website has launched, we are the #1 spot. And actually, if none of you have been to dairyfarmingtoday.org, I would really encourage you to. It's just a great place if you're talking with someone at the grocery store or someone at church or someone at your school and they have more questions than you have time to answer or can answer, send them here. This is just a great site full of all sorts of information. We have a Q&A page. We have a myths versus facts page. We also have virtual tours where they can either choose the dairy farmer, his wife, or their child to take them on a tour of the calving pen, of the milking parlor, and just other aspects of the dairy farm. We also launched Dairy Farming Today YouTube channel where we have some of those same videos from dairyfarmingtoday.org. As you can see in this one, we have a video of a cow enjoying a back scratcher. We also have a Dairy Farming Today Facebook page. On this, we have about 1,500 fans, mostly dairy producers. We also highlight some positive dairy blogs every couple weeks. We have a screenshot of Will Gilmer. He's a dairy farmer in Alabama, and I'll talk more about him later. And then we have a screenshot for Orange Patch Dairy Blog, and Shannon is here to talk to us a little later on about that. And then in June, to help promote June is Dairy Month, we created America's Dairy Farm Families Make It Happen. This Facebook page, the goal of it was to connect dairy producers with consumers. It gave us a place where we can have discussion boards on, what's your favorite nutritious dairy product? Or dairy producers in my community, or invest in my community, buy. And people could fill in the blanks, and it just helped to open that dialogue. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Polly O'Grady.
Hi, everyone. I'm very glad to be here today. In fact, I want to start off with a little bit of a confession. It's actually been a long, long time since I've been at World Dairy Expo. The last time was in 1987 as a member of the University of Georgia dairy judging team, so I'm very happy to be back here. Never lost touch with the dairy industry, and I'm especially happy to be here to talk with you about social media. One of the reasons is because social media has so much power, and there's so much opportunity there for the dairy industry to tell its story. So we're going to talk a little bit about social media in general, what gives it that power, and how you can utilize it to help get the messages out there and counter some of the negatives out there, and also educate consumers about your business. Talking about when the last time I was at World Dairy Expo, that was 1987. That was right before, before anybody had computers in their home or office. It was before the internet. It was before the web. In fact, I was still typing my term papers on a typewriter. I'm sure some of you can remember that. And think of how far we've come in that time. Home computers, the internet, and now we have social media. And really, the easiest way to define social media is pretty basic. It's a collection of applications, and it's a powerful combination of applications that essentially allow you to do four things. Create content, videos, stories, post things online, build communities, make connections, and join in the conversation. And we're going to talk a little bit about how you can do all four of those things today. So let's talk about why social media is so powerful. The biggest thing that's changed is the way all of us, both in rural areas and urban areas, connect with each other. Social media has enabled us to do that. One of my favorite jokes is that, when I was growing up on a Jersey farm in South Carolina, we had three basic ways to give and share information: television, telephone, and tell the milk truck driver. And you could guarantee anything you said would get around the community within a couple of days. So, and I don't think Twitter is ever going to replace the milk truck driver, but there's certainly a great opportunity there for us to amplify our messages and get things out, not only in the dairy community, but to others as well. So let's talk about the power of social media. First of all, it empowers individuals. You no longer need a printing press. You no longer need a lot of money. You need some basic technology, and you can go out and publish anything you want. You can share stories. You can share your point of view. You can share videos. It's great for that. There's also the power of social networking, which means that when you combine a lot of people, when a lot of people are out there online telling the same story, there's an amplification effect. And that's basically why we're here talking about social media today. Social media amplifies and automates word of mouth. It's like Jolene said, it's a megaphone. You can talk to a lot of people and reach a lot of people at one time. So if there's one statistic that you need to know to really understand the power of social media, I'll share it with you right now. And it actually has nothing to do with social media. Here's the number you need to remember. 90%. So according to some research that we have, 90% of consumers regard word of mouth as the best source of ideas and information about products and services. We all know how word of mouth works. If you're interested in buying a new product or trying out a service or working with a new business, you talk to people you know. You hear about new things through people you know. You talk to your family, you talk to your friends, you talk to your neighbors. You get an idea of what other people's experiences have been on with a certain product or service. The same thing is true of news. A lot of people get their news by talking to other people. A lot of people get their ideas and perspectives on different issues by talking to others that they know and trust. So once again, 90% word of mouth. And what social media does is it amplifies word of mouth. Word of mouth becomes word of mouth. You have a lot of people that you can talk to about something. I could go into my Facebook page right now and post a status update and ask people, I'm interested in trying this product. Do you have any experience about it? Let me know. And I'll get, within the next hour and a couple of minutes, I'll get a whole lot of feedback from people telling me what their experience has been. Sometimes they'll refer me to other people who've had that experience. If you have a blog that I read and I trust, and you post some information about bad service you've gotten at a restaurant or at a different company, I'll read that, and it may change my perspective on how I feel about that company. So social media is very powerful in sharing information and also shaping public opinion. Just to go back to something I said earlier, the whole thing that we're talking about today is how you're going to share your story and your perspective on the dairy industry online. And as I said earlier, there's 4 ways to do that. First of all, through conversations. It's through starting a blog and telling other people your story and responding to comments that they post on your site. It's also about creating content. It's about sharing photographs with people, positive images from your farm or the line of work you have that's associated with dairy. It's also about creating videos. It's about sharing links and putting information out there that spreads the word. It allows you to connect with other people. Anybody who's been on Facebook knows how this happens. You suddenly start friending people from all different aspects of your life, and they find you out there. You make those connections. If you're on Twitter, which is more open, you'll find that people start following you because they want to hear what you have to say. And then finally, community. If you're online long enough and using social media, you will build up and engage with different communities of people. So right now, if I look at my Facebook page, there's a group of people that I work with. There's a group of people from high school who have somehow found me. I'm not sure that's always good. And then there's friends of friends, people who I've met through those connections online. So the longer I'm on Facebook, the broader my circle of friends, the more people I can reach with positive information about dairy or just interesting stories about my life. So let's talk a little bit about successful social media participation. What does it mean? What does it mean to be an online dairy advocate and do a good job? Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, keep in mind that social media is personality driven. It's not dry news and information. It is people sharing their experience, people sharing their stories, and people telling about their lives. You have to be passionate about the topic you're speaking about. This is especially true on blogs, because if you're going to put up a blog post every couple of days, you need to have something interesting to say. You need to be passionate about your subject matter. You need to be aware of what others are saying and doing online. Jolene showed you a couple of examples from what the anti-agriculture groups are putting out there. It's important to be aware of it and recognize those messages when they crop up as comments on your blog or responses to something you've posted on Facebook, or even some things that show up on the comments around YouTube videos. If you want to participate in social media, you do what's convenient to you. You know, we're not expecting everybody to walk out of the room today and go start a blog. That's not for everybody. We're not expecting you to get on Twitter and start putting out posts every couple of minutes. Not only would that be impossible, it might be a little annoying to anybody that's following you. But what we do expect is for you to look at social media and find ways to engage. And we'll talk about some simple ways to do that as we go through here. Just a couple other things real quickly. Being on social media shouldn't be overtly self-serving. That sounds kind of counterintuitive to what we're asking you to do today, but basically we're just asking you to share information. And when you share information, you should also make sure people understand who you are and where you're coming from, that you work for the dairy industry, that you're part of the dairy industry. We never want anybody to hide behind anything that they're not. Make sure what you post is informative and relevant. Again, like I said, you need to be transparent and self-disclosing. You need to let people know who you are and who you represent. And keep it conversational in tone. This is not a news story. It's not any kind of formal writing. You can talk to people in a conversational tone, and that's what works best. And then really, if you're going to be successful, it's great to have images and videos and other media forms and links that you can share with people. Okay? Here's what social media participation should not be. It's not just about only writing a blog like we just talked about. There's all kinds of ways to join the conversation, create content, and participate. It's also not argumentative, and we're going to look at some examples in a minute of things that people have posted and ways to respond that are respectful, but you're not getting into a shouting match online. It doesn't have to be expensive. Most people have computers now. Most people have a way to go online. It doesn't have to be time-consuming, and it's really not anymore technologically complicated at all. Most times you can just go to twitter.com, facebook.com, sign up, and you're ready to go. So let's talk a little bit about some of the ways you can engage online. We're just going to give you a sampling of these. If you sign up for the My Dairy Toolkit and gain access to that, you'll find a whole lot of information about different aspects of social media and ways you can engage. So Facebook, we said at the beginning, quite a few of you are already on Facebook. Let me ask you this. How many of you have utilized Facebook to share positive information about dairy? Yeah? Can I ask a couple of people, how did you do that? How did you utilize Facebook? You posted links. Okay. Anybody else? Dairy fact of the day, that's a great one. Yep. Great. And those are some of the best ways to utilize Facebook for that purpose. As we said earlier, Facebook is one of the things that's become the most pervasive. It's the #7 website in the world. There's all kinds of networks. It provides an opportunity to answer questions about dairy farms via wall posts. You can also join different groups. If there's one thing that you do when you walk out of here today and you're on Facebook, we'd like you to go to the Dairy Farming Today fan page and join. And that's one thing you can do to help spread the word about dairy. Moving on pretty quickly, some of you already said that you utilize your Facebook page for updates. There's some examples of that on here. It's also a good idea to post pictures, positive images from your farm, and couple that with an explanation of what kinds of things are being done. Just real quickly about YouTube. YouTube, again, what did we say, 20 hours of video are being uploaded all the time. There's a lot of good stuff out there, and there's a lot of bad stuff out there. Right now, Dairy Farming Today channel has 79 subscribers. We'd like to get that number up. Positive videos are being posted all the time. We encourage you to look at those videos, to share them through your Facebook page, to share them to Twitter, help magnify and amplify what's being shown and said on that site. So earlier I talked about an example of interacting with others on sites that may have different points of view, and there's an example here from YouTube that I just want to look at real quickly. If you'll notice the bottom post, this is what somebody posted about one of the videos that we had up there. I do not come from a farming background, but I do my research. These videos are designed to clean up the image of large-scale dairy production. The recent documentations of livestock mistreatment has forced the dairy industry to reassure consumers with PR videos like Dairy Farming Today. Personally, I try to get my milk from smaller family operations near where I live in Virginia, and it does not have to be organic either. Now, we could have just left that message up there. Instead, Jolene, on behalf of the dairy industry, went online and said this: as a member of Dairy Farming Today team and someone who grew up on a farm, I thank you for watching. These videos show a cross-section of the entire dairy industry. While all dairy operations are managed differently, all farmers have the same dedication to their animals because they, in turn, provide us and our families. I'm glad you like visiting local farms and drink your milk. I encourage everyone to visit a real-life farm to see for themselves what dairy farming is all about. It's a respectful response. It states the counter to the story that this person is telling. And so now anybody that comes to this page who might have heard some of the things that this first person has heard and has put out there, there's something that balances. Really, this is all we're trying to get at, is making sure that there's a positive dairy story that counters the negative. And we want to join in those conversations in a way that's respectful, and this does that. Just a quick word about Flickr. Flickr is a great opportunity. If you love to take pictures, post them on Flickr, tag them with captions that explain what's going on, have really great images of modern dairy farming out there, and you'll have people pick up and use them. And just some examples of that. We just want to run through real quickly a couple of examples of positive dairy blogs, and some of you may have seen these before, and I'm actually going to let Jolene step up and talk about a few of these.
All right, this is Will Gilmer, and I mentioned him earlier when I showed a screenshot of our Dairy Farming Today Facebook page. Will has actually had a blog for about 2 or 3 years now, and he does a really great job of updating regularly. He will update anything from June is Dairy Month to this recent post, which was roadway safety is a shared responsibility. Apparently during field work, there was some less than ideal things going on with the traffic behind him and his slow-moving vehicles. And actually, after participating in the My Dairy program, Will now has a Facebook page, and he also has a Twitter account. And he often tweets from his tractor and his milking parlor, as well as from industry meetings that he attends. So a great example of a My Dairy advocate. And then, again, we have a screenshot of Shannon See's blog from Orange Patch Dairy in Minnesota. And as you can see, Shannon was able to embed a video of their corn when they were chopping corn silage a couple days ago. So she has really taken off with this blog since the My Dairy program, and she'll actually be able to stand up here in a couple minutes and share some more examples with us, so I won't steal her thunder. And then this last one is a very new blog from my great state of Michigan. It's a dairy producer who just got started. And I put this screenshot on just so that you can see, because it wasn't coming up in my other screenshots. But off to the side, there are archives, and you can search the different blog posts that the blog authors have posted, as well as who they're following. Yeah. So.
An example of a good way to share information to and link people, kind of keep that conversation going about what's going on in farms, is including links to other blogs that are on similar topics alongside your blog. That's one way that we keep getting the word out. Okay. Just a couple of quick tips for better blogging. Like we said, include images, videos, photos, include links to other blogs. Do not say anything in your blog that you do not want to appear in a news article or somebody else's blog. One of the things that we're seeing, and this is one of the powerful things about social media, but something to keep in mind, is that news media are quoting from blogs. They're quoting from Twitter feeds. So you put it out there, it's in the public domain, you never know where it's going to show up. So that's why it pays to be respectful and make sure you have your facts straight on what you post. Know what like-minded bloggers are writing about and link to their blogs. And like we said, include a blog roll on the side there of blogs that you like to refer to, and also archives of what you've posted. Okay? Ultimately, where we want to go with this is not just to have people like you out there talking about the dairy industry, people within the industry, but we want to start having other people with respective blogs who are outside the industry talking about dairy as well and what's positive about it. And this is a great example that's just happened in the last month. And again, I'm going to let Jolene step in and talk a little bit about this, because she watched this story unfold.
Yes, I did. It was kind of an exciting story to watch unfold. We have a consumer who blogs on a regular basis. She had some misconceptions about the dairy industry, and instead of believing everything that she read and saw, she decided to visit a local dairy farmer. So before school started, she took her kids, her young girls, and visited a dairy farm and was able to talk with the producer, his family, watch their interaction, see firsthand what they do to care for their animals and to care for the environment. And when she left there, she posted this blog and just said how, being there firsthand and seeing it and witnessing the dedication and the love that these producers have for their animals and their land, she said it just completely changed her point of view. She did, if you want to click one more time, Polly, she did at the end of her blog ask for producers to reach out and to let her know what they do to care for their animals and to share their stories. She had about 57 people comment within 2 days of posting that blog. So it was really great to see someone take this information that she had gathered and try and spread it to other consumers who read her blog as well.
Yeah. And the other thing we see happening here, as we did in the YouTube example, is that you do have people pop up and kind of present this negative point of view. Well, this is what I think of dairy farms, and this is what I've heard. And again, we don't necessarily want those comments to go away, but there's a conversation happening here that we can join in and participate in. And again, for people who aren't as set in their thinking about modern dairy farming, it gives us a chance to talk to them and give them an alternate point of view. Just a quick word about Twitter. I think everybody's heard about Twitter because it's probably one of the fastest growing and most popular of the social media elements. Basically, for those of you who don't know, it's really simple. You go to twitter.com, you register a handle or basically your name, and then you can start following other people on Twitter, and you post 140-character updates on what you're doing, different ideas, things like that. Government's using it, industry's using it, individuals are using it. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the practices, best practices for Twitter. Again, it's very similar to everything else we've talked about for other forms of social media. You want to find and follow those people who are very outspoken about modern dairy farming practices, both positive and negative. That's a simple thing you can do. Actually, you can register on Twitter and you don't ever have to Twitter yourself. You can just follow other people. You can use a tweet deck. If you Google tweet deck, it'll come up and show you how to do this, but you can set up a page where you can monitor multiple tweets at one time. You can listen to and participate in conversation about dairy-related topics. You can create relationships and build a network of other dairy advocates to get the story out there, and we're going to talk in a minute about how you can do that. And you can also retweet what other people are saying to help get the positive story out there. Now, just for fun, we want to show you an example of a series of tweets that evolved as of last night related to World Dairy Expo. The first disclaimer I have to have is that 2 of my colleagues from the agency I work for were involved in setting this up. So yesterday, we had someone from one of the dairy publications who talked about the fact that World Dairy Expo was starting tomorrow and they were going to start seeing how many grilled cheese sandwiches they could eat. So one of my colleagues tweeted back and threw down a challenge. So let's see who can eat the most grilled cheese sandwiches the first day of World Dairy Expo. So in addition to using the hashtag WDE09, we developed a second hashtag. And hashtags are how people mark what the conversation thread is. So we added the hashtag #grilled cheese. I think that was what it was. So as of this morning, now we're starting to see lots of people chiming in on this, participating in this challenge. It's all kind of silly, but this is just an example how people start talking to each other, engaging around social media, and joining the conversation. So it can be fun as well as informative. Just some examples of how people are tweeting about dairy. A couple of these up here. Again, you would think that 140 characters isn't a lot, but you can say a great deal in 140 characters. Just little notes about what's going on with your day, what's happening on the farm. There's a lot of great information on dairy farming today that you can also weave into there as well. And again, tips on doing this in the My Dairy Toolkit. And I'm going to turn it back over to Jolene to talk about this particular campaign.
Yes, staying on the Twitter topic, on August 16th, a couple dairy producers across the country actually wanted people to start putting a hashtag, which is the # moo, in their Twitter posts or their tweets. They started talking about this a couple days before the 16th and just thought it would be a great idea or opportunity to help them as producers connect with consumers and to talk to them about what dairy producers are currently facing right now, and again, the dedication that they have for their animals and for their land. So on Sunday, August 16th, there were over 6,000 tweets that had #moo in them, and there were over 3,000 individuals who posted a tweet with #moo. Every day, Twitter has a top 10 Twitter trends list, and #moo actually reached number 4 on that day. So it was a great opportunity for them to, I know a couple consumers, I would see them when I was online say, why is everyone mooing on Twitter today? And it was just a great opportunity for a producer to step in and say, well, here's my blog for more information, or here's what I do, here's my dedication, and just to share their stories with consumers.